Welcome back to the Farmstead Farm Podcast, your southern hub for all things homesteading. Today, we're joined by Rachel Smith, nurse practitioner, as we explore simple kitchen swaps for healthier living. We'll talk about better cooking oils, which foods to buy organic, the Clean 15, Dirty Dozen, blood sugar tips, and how to choose organic grains, meats, and non-GMO foods. And remember, nothing here is medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the Farmstead Farm Podcast, where we are prepared to learn today again with Rachel Smith about food swaps on the homestead. Healthy food swaps, we'll say. Rachel, welcome back. And this is part 2. And we'll just kind of get into the content. So what are some of the first swaps y'all had to do in your kitchen as far as food goes?
Part of first for me, I think, was our grains, kicking out all processed foods, white bread, white sugar, etc. Now, this came when I was a very young child due to health issues that my parents were having, my mother in particular. And so we went to fresh milled whole grains. Continue this practice to this day. Organic grains, you want to really watch it. I was actually reading a report this morning on glyphosate because there's a bill before the U.S. Congress right now to try to get glyphosate basically protected no matter where it comes from, whether it's ag China or so on. And we know it's tied to many, many things, including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So you want to really watch it because a lot of the grains are really sprayed with that. And then, of course, corn has been genetically modified to be Roundup ready, so they can spray it directly on it. And the corn will keep growing, but everything else around it will either die or defoliate or so on. Pesticides are a huge part of this that I really want us to start thinking about because it's going to affect part of what we talk about today too. But some of these pesticides started back with the chemical companies that were making Agent Orange or Zyklon B, if you know your World War II history, or so on and so forth. So a lot of these have some really dark sides to their history. Then Bayer was one of the ones of the German chemical companies that was working, of course, for the Nazi regime and so on. And of course, is a major chemical manufacturer today. When Bayer and Monsanto joined, and you now have the company creating chemicals that are causing the diseases, and Bayer, who is like this with them, they are now one company creating the medications to treat said diseases. And so no matter which way you cut the cake, they're making money. So I will say, as a family with lots of mouths to feed and so on, I cannot always go organic. So it's important to me to choose the things that are most important to be organic. So grain is one of the ones that I do. Oats, high glyphosate content when tested. I would do some of the like protein pastas, like chickpea pastas, came out incredibly high numbers, like Bonza. I used to do Bonza. I don't anymore. They are one of the highest levels that was
Don't
tested.
tell me that.
Yeah,
Man, that was my gluten-free option.
Yeah, there's other companies that make similar pastas that are a lot lower numbers than Bonza. Bonza was one of the highest glyphosate numbers they tested. I think that report came out from Moms Across America study they had paid for to be done on that. So you can go back and look at them. So some of the vegetables are going to be really important about that. So let's look at that. Every year there's published a Dirty Dozen and a Clean 15 list. The Dirty Dozen.
Wait. Okay. I've heard about this, but it's new every year.
Every year or two, they redo it to see what it is. And it's based on the tested number of pesticides on those plants. Now, some of them are on the list every single year. So Dirty Dozen, things like strawberries, blueberries, grapes, peaches, spinach, greens are on it this year, like kale, chard, mustard, etc. Cherries, nectarines, pears, apples, blackberries, potatoes, and then like hot peppers or green beans. Those are all on the list this year. Berries like blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, apples, peaches tend to be on that list every year because they are really pesticide sprayed unless you are homesteading them yourselves or working with a natural plant, like a natural grower. I had one up near my parents that I was working with for a while, and he straight up told me, he said, we cannot get the yield the other farms can without using the chemicals, but we want the clean product. So they can't bring in as much because they're not using the major chemicals to keep the pests at bay, to keep the things from spoiling their fruit, to keep the fire ants under control, et cetera, et cetera. So when you can on those, buy organic. I am pretty strict the way my kids gobble up berries that I try to make sure that I'm buying like organic strawberries because they go through them so fast and they're harder to clean. Now, all of your fruits and vegetables, unless you have straight organic, I would strongly encourage wash them. I will, like, if the kids want berries, I soak them in baking soda water for 10 minutes before I rinse them and then hand them to the kids to eat. There's a couple different washes you can get out there, see what you're comfortable with. I know one of my friends swears by one from Melaleuca. I have not used it personally. I cannot tell you if it's clean enough for my
And
skin or
I
not.
think Norwex makes a veggie wash, but I haven't looked at the
There's, yeah, I need to
ingredients
go
in a
look at their
while.
products apparently.
Get a catalog, girl.
It's been a couple years since I bought from them, so I need to go see what they've got right now. I will use, like, if I need something to just spray and wash really quickly, I will use the Fit organic fruit and vegetable spray because its main cleaning power is citrus oils.
You're
So
talking about you're only using this when you're not buying organic.
right, right.
Okay.
Now some of them I will wash, period. I want to make sure the dirt's off of it and so on. But for instance, you should even like wipe down your bananas and stuff. If it's organic, I literally just rip them off and hand them to the kids.
Yeah.
So Clean 15 this year updated pineapple. They have sweet corn on there, but I will say corn is one of the number one GMO'd crops in the United States. And I would
Yeah.
recommend staying away from anything that is GMO'd, if at all possible. If you are okay doing corn, make sure you're doing it organically, but make sure you're doing it in moderation also, because we're going to talk about part of the blood sugar balance here in a minute. But Clean 15, avocados, papaya, onions, kiwi, sweet peas, asparagus, cabbage, watermelon, cauliflower, bananas, mango, coconuts, and mushrooms. Now, a general rule of thumb that a lot of people recommend is if they are a root vegetable that grows under the ground, the pesticide level is usually going to be a little lower if you are not eating the foliage part on the top, like the greens and so
So
on.
that's what I was thinking, but I just saw when you were talking about the Dirty Dozen list that potatoes were on
Words
that
were included
list.
on it. So I need to find out the update as to why that has changed. Because generally, if it was potatoes, onions, carrots, parsnips, beets, anything like that, I didn't worry about it as much. Now, that being said, I still wash them. I may not
Yeah.
peel them, but I will still wash them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
And
take that in
explain
mind.
to people why you don't peel your veggies, like why
I
you
don't
wouldn't want
peel
to
my
peel carrots.
organic veggies. If it is non-organic, I usually will, but a lot of the nutrients is trapped right there in that micro layer right under the skin. And the peelers go deeper than that. So you're losing a large percentage of the nutrients of the vegetable in that part that gets removed with the peel. So I want to maintain that. Now, if I've got organic potatoes, I wash them and chop them. Organic carrots, I wash them and chop them. Organic parsnips or anything like that, I wash them and chop them. All of that stays on there. And it goes into whatever I'm cooking.
And also, like apples, I know that the skin has high levels of quercetin in it, which is really good for your immune system. So that's another reason, you shouldn't peel your apples.
Right. Right. So with that, olive oil, oils, cooking oils. We've had a huge marketing campaign, and I will say that's exactly what it is, a marketing campaign to say that canola oil or vegetable oil is a healthier oil. It's better for your heart, et cetera, et cetera. You'll even see the heart symbol on some of these, right? It is marketing, and that is all. Canola oil is rapeseed oil, which was used as machine lubricant.
Let's put some of that in our arteries.
So it is a machine lubricating oil that they have clarified and sold as a heart healthy oil. Now, the last I checked, and I've been doing this for a long time, we don't have a machine inside our heart unless you have an LVAD. Okay. So
That's explain people what that is for people who don't know much about cardiology.
it's a left ventricular assistive device. Basically, somebody's heart has failed, and we have a machine attached to their heart continuing to circulate the blood until they can get a heart transplant. So that is the layman's definition.
That person probably shouldn't be using canola oil
Right, right.
or Crisco.
Crisco. Crisco came about in the 1930s 30s, 40s, 50s. And part of that was due to the wartime effort with rationing and with needing to ship things and making sure that the GIs had enough nutrients to continue staying on the field. That also is where pasteurized milk came from, so that they could can the milk and send it overseas. Pasteurization was never made for milk and honey, and it's the two most highly pushed processes in the United States as far as pasteurization. If you know anything about medical and scientific history, Louis Pasteur, who was, of course, one of the major fathers of the germ theory, created pasteurization to save the wine and beer industry in Europe because they kept losing their products to fermentation and becoming vinegar.
Yeah.
So that is where the pasteurization process came to. Now, both milk and honey are killed with all the nutritive properties of it are killed in the heating process. With honey in particular, they heat it really fast, really hot, and then cool it down, and it actually burns the honey and kills the nutritive process. With milk, they kill it. So all of the good flora, the good fauna, the stuff that's supposed to build that gut microbiome is killed in the process. They are allowed to have far dirtier samples in the milk taken than the raw milk farms. And then they homogenize it so that you no longer have to shake the cream into the milk or skim it off to make butter, buttermilk, cheeses, etc. It was a convenience thing. The problem is it causes leaky gut because the fat, all of your gut has pores, right, for nutrient exchange and so on. The fat globules in the milk were supposed to be able to go by and stay in it. But when they homogenize it and break it down, now you've got leaky gut syndrome and causing more systemic inflammation, which is why so many people have chronic sinusitis and allergies and so on. And the first thing that they tell people to do is come off dairy.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it clears up, not because this is the problem, but because their gut is the problem from the pasteurized milk. So don't use pasteurized milk if you can work with a farmer who has a clean process, or if you're raising your own milk animals, cows, goats, etc. Make sure you're doing it cleanly.
There's
And
also a good way to find local farmers. It's called rawmilk.com. And I believe that they are, located by region. So they put in their area code. The farmer advertises basically that they have a farm, and then it's your job to go in there and find them. So that's one way that you can find. And they have a lot of good resources on raw milk on that website.
yeah, I would say vet your farmer also. See if they drink it, if they feed it to their kids. If so, they're going to do the process to keep the animals clean and the milking buckets clean and all like that, that the major industry doesn't have to do, because they're going to boil it and kill it anyway. Okay. If they're not doing that, then maybe find a different farmer. Healthy fats. So we want to stay away from the canola oil, the vegetable oil, the Crisco, the shortening, any of it that's butter plus canola oil or whatever else. No. Okay. Healthy fats. We want to do extra virgin olive oil. That needs to be in glass or tin, because once again, plastics leach chemicals. I have a family friend who used to be a factory inspector and stuff and was sent overseas multiple times. And in Italy, they are not even, I can't remember if it's Italy and Spain, but I know Italy is not even allowed to put it in plastic except for the American market. And he asked him why. He said, because we know that it leaches chemicals and carcinogens into the oil. And the only reason we do it in plastic for the American market is the Americans demand it.
Oh my goodness.
So if you're going to do it, make sure you're buying it in glass or tin. It needs to be cold pressed. First, cold pressed is preferable, extra virgin olive oil, because that is the first pressing of the oil out of it. You can get a first or second pressing after that, release the oils from it with, I believe, a hexane process. So getting major chemicals in that cheap, low level olive oil. So it's not giving you any health benefit. Avocado oil is fine. It does have a different heat point and burning point. It's very expensive. Coconut oil is a good one if you're getting, particularly if you're getting organic. It's got really good things in it. In fact, in World War II, when they were fighting in the South Pacific and running out of IV fluids, they started tapping coconuts to use the coconut water as IV fluids and electrolytes for the GIs there. So there's a lot of really good stuff with that. And then I would say grass-fed butter. If you've got your own animals and you're or that raw milk and you can make it yourself, absolutely do. If not, you want a grass-fed butter. Either grass-fed, grass-finished, or grass-fed non-GMO grain finished, but you want that. They should spend the majority of the time on the pasture. So that leads me to meats. I have two major categories of meats. Okay. We've got our clean, low inflammatory meats and our high inflammatory, high toxin meats. And both of them are included in the typical American diet. Particularly, some of people get shocked with this when I say it in the South because it's kind of staples down here. But if I generally put these into two overreaching categories, we have the animals that eat grass, nuts, seeds, planktons, bugs. Okay. We all have, in the other category, carnivores, scavengers, bottom feeders, water filters, etc. Okay. So on this side, we've got the animals that were created for the purpose of cleaning up the earth. That's going to be your pigs, your shellfish, your bottom feeders, the fish with skin, etc., who usually tend to be either carnivores or bottom feeders. They do the same job as a buzzard. If you're not going to eat a buzzard because that's disgusting, they're doing the exact same job. They're eating the same kind of things. Okay. Pigs will eat all the slop. They will eat dead, decaying, a human body, each other, their own refuse. And when they ship the pigs in the stacked containers, the ones on the bottom are the largest when they arrive to the destination because they're eating the refuse of the ones that have been pooping above. So their job is to clean up the earth. All of the animals in this cleanup category, their job is to keep the earth, whether land, water, lakes, seas, clean enough so that the rest of the life is not poisoned. They do that by trapping the toxins within themselves so that it is in a contained environment. Okay. We've got biohazard for a reason, right? We put something that is either radioactive or blood or a pathogen or something in a contained environment so that it can be shipped and removed and not poison someone or something else, right? It's why radiation spills, biohazard spills are a major thing because it's no longer locked away and contained. That's exactly what these animals are doing. The shellfish filter the water. So in the news, I believe it was, there was a mercury spill in the Gulf of Mexico, now the Gulf of America. And there was major concern. Are we going to lose the plant and seafood life here? I mean, this is major income and industry for all of the folks, in that Gulf region. And as the oceanographers studied everything, what they realized was as the mercury levels went down in the water, it went up in the shellfish. They are the liver of the ocean. They filter it and they put the water back out by trapping all of the toxins within themselves. So everything else is swimming around, our seaweed, seafood, etc., is safe to be there because those shellfish are being the liver of the ocean and filtering all of that through. The bottom feeders have a definite purpose. If things are dying and falling to the bottom and decaying, that's eventually going to cause problems, right? Think about what we do. If something is dead, we try to get it contained. We put people in body bags and get them contained in a casket or something like that because disease comes with that. Well, if you've got all of that dying and decaying and not being cleaned up, then pretty soon the entire waterway is poisoned from the decaying process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have a specific job to do, an incredibly important job to do on the earth. And that is to clean up that so that everything else is safe and can live. So seafood that you want to eat, it needs to have fins and scales. And it either eats very tiny fish or things like plankton or the plant matter of the ocean. So
before we continue, I want to remind you that all of the show notes and resources mentioned in today's episode are available on our website at farmsteadforum.com. If you're finding value in this content, please take a moment to like this episode and subscribe to the Farmstead Forum podcast on YouTube and Spotify. It truly helps support the show. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date on upcoming episodes, events, and everything happening with Farmstead Forum. Thanks so much for being here and for supporting this community. Is salmon doesn't have scales?
Yep, it does.
It does have scales?
It's got scales.
Okay.
So
All
things
right.
Salmon, tuna, trout, bass, cod, whitefish, bluefish, etc. Those are all fantastic because of what they eat and what their living process is. Now, I would say if you're doing the salmon, try to get the wild caught. honestly, on anything, try to get wild caught, because the farm fish process is pretty disgusting. They're highly stressed. They're in a high toxic environment. You've got thousands of fish swimming in a vat together and living in their own, cesspool, basically. It's also hard to control what they're eating, because it's only what the farmers are giving them, not the natural environment of what they're supposed to be eating, right? So also that makes it a higher toxin fish because of the environment in which it was grown before being going to market. On the other hand, land animals, if they're eating grass, if they're eating seeds, nuts, bugs, that kind of thing, that is a really good animal for our eating purpose. So we're talking things like grass-fed beef, deer, lamb, goat, chicken, turkey, those kinds of things, right? You want to get them free range, pasture raised as much as possible. If it's one of the fowl, right? We want them to be out there scratching the seeds and picking the bugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they were made to eat. If we're getting the cattle and all, we want them on the pastures so that they are eating that grass and getting the nutrients that God made them to do, so that gets transferred into the nutrients in them that we later ingest, right? Whether
So
you're getting
on that note,
that too.
when we were talking about chickens at the Farmstead Forum, one of our sponsors is Resaca Sun Feeds. They did a study on pasture raised eggs versus, I guess, chickens that were not on pasture, but they were given, didn't matter which type of feed that they were given, which we still want non GMO, but their omega-3 and 6 content, like they had a higher proportion of inflammatory like omega-6 compared to omega-3s when they were not on pasture. So the ones that were on pasture were healthier and had less inflammatory omega-3s, content in the eggs that they produced. So I
Yeah,
thought that was interesting.
I believe it. In the United States, with the typical American diet, we are very high in omega 6, which causes those inflammatory pathways, versus the omega 3s. And even if you're going to try to take an omega 3 supplement, you need to make sure it's a pure one that's not, made in China somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
That's also sourced from wild caught fish. I think Nordic Naturals is one of my favorite ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So,
also when you're talking about the having a higher level of omega-6, when you're using olive oil, you don't want to cook with it. It's better if you use that as like a salad dressing, because when you do heat olive oil, because the temperature for it to start breaking down is lower than what it is for like avocado oil or coconut oil, the omega's content will be higher in the olive oil when you're heating it versus if you had it at room temperature. So that's just another tip on olive oil.
yeah. And grass-fed butter is a great one for that as well. That coconut oil or grass-fed butter, they do better for coating your pan and so on. Now, I do still cook with olive oil sometimes, like if I'm doing a saute, but you can absolutely do that in that coconut oil also. I'm shifting my fats around here and here a little bit. So healthy fats, your body needs healthy fats. And everybody is like, but what about my cholesterol? Let me explain the process here. When we eat this high omega 6, high inflammatory, bad meat diet, typical American food that's nothing more than empty calories and chemicals for the most part, we are causing a high inflammatory diet. And I want you to think about your insides. We're going to use DOT for an example here. Okay. The more we have that inflammatory diet, the more it is tearing up the road on the insides, whether that's our gut, whether that's our blood vessels, whether that is our circulatory system or whatever. Your body's natural process to repair that is to take cholesterol and to use it as a patch. So you don't end up rupturing a blood vessel and bleeding to death. Right. So that cholesterol is the patch. The patch is not the problem. The torn up road is. Right? We've all seen those bumpy, terrible roads. Thank goodness it's not South Carolina. And they have to come in and patch it, and eventually they have to repave it, right? Well, that repaving essentially is now you've had to have an intervention or something to open
A
that up.
stint.
Or, yeah, you got a stent, you got a bypass, you got something to try to replace, redirect circulation through that area. If you eat a low inflammatory diet, healthy fats, balanced blood sugar, which I'm getting ready to talk about, and those healthier meats and not the cleanup animals, then we see that those inflammatory markers go down, cholesterol numbers balance without statins, and people have clear pigmentation etc., because they're not on those medications with the major side effects. Now, another thing we really need to think about is, again, typical American diet is for the trash can. It is horrific in how much it tears up your body. But something else I see a lot is we've got really high numbers of type 2 diabetes. And type 2 diabetes is a major problem because, number one, usually it's more adult onset or adolescent to adult onset. We have an obesity epidemic. Again, empty calories, high chemicals, high bad fats, bad meats, no nutrients, right? So we're eating more, but our body's still in starvation mode as far as nutrient content. Secondly, we have a lot of carbs. Who here has seen folks just going down the aisle and they've got bread and they've got chips and they've got Doritos and they've got everything else? And what I don't see are fruits, vegetables, and much meat, right?
Yep.
We have cause insulin resistance and high insulin spikes. So the problem is you eat sugar or you eat something that turns into sugar, corn, potatoes, breads, pastas, cakes, cookies, anything that turns into sugar fast. And that includes some of the fruits. And it spikes and then it drops. And then you get shaky and hungry and brain fog. And then you eat again and it spikes and it drops. And eventually your body stops being able to regulate when and how much your insulin is released, and the cells stop taking it in right. So you have more and more trouble balancing your blood sugar. There is a very easy fix to this in the early stages. And even some people, I've seen their A1C come way down when they start doing this one tip. It drives me crazy. This used to be standard education 30 years ago. And so many people I talk to now say, nobody's ever told me this. They've told me I need to be on a GLP-1, but they've never told me this. And here's the key. Anytime you eat something, meal, snack, anything else, you need to make sure you have a protein or a healthy fat included in that meal or snack, right? Healthy fats. This could be protein and healthy fat. We're talking meats, eggs, cheese, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt. It needs to be at least 2 or 5%. Don't get that 0% stuff because you need the healthy fat. Avocados, nuts, nut butter. If it's a nut butter, whether it's peanuts, walnuts, cashew, almond, whatever, it needs to have the name of that nut and salt in it. That is it. Don't get any of these constantly smooth and creamy ones that are slightly sweet, like Skippy and Jif and Peter Pan. They are loaded with chemicals, toxic oils, and sugars. You need to have to stir that butter because the nuts, when they're broken up, create a solid and a fat that separate. So you have to stir it up. That is all that should be included in your nut butters. Raw nuts, not your sugar-coated, honey-coated peanuts, but raw nuts or salted nuts.
And you have to soak your nuts too. Did you know that?
I've never soaked my nuts.
Okay. So
But
because
I have digestive issues if they don't. Is that right?
So it's the digestion, but it's also absorbing the nutrients of the nuts. So just like grains, how the protective coating, I believe in grains, it's also phytic acid. So when you don't soak the nut, the phytic acid coating protects the nut from, supposed to be protective of you not being able to absorb.
Right.
But anyway, so you soak it overnight in salt water and then just dump it out next morning and then throw it in your dehydrator before you store them. So that's what I do. I saw an article about it. It's a pain in the butt. So I usually do a lot at a time. Then I just found out that pecans, most of the pecans you get at the store are rancid and that they're supposed to be kept in the freezer for them to be.
I'm in the freezer, and walnuts too. They will go bad in the heat of the South.
Well,
keep them in the refrigerator or the freezer also.
So I've been keeping my nuts in my pantry, but I guess I need to be keeping them in the freezer.
Any of those softer,
Stick them from your dehydrator into the freezer then.
Yeah. So walnuts, pecans, cashews, etc. They are those higher fat nuts. They go rancid very easily. And for years, I have kept mine either in the refrigerator or the freezer to slow down that exposure. So the key is with that balancing of the blood sugar. One of those categories we talked about: clean meats, eggs, nuts, cheeses, avocados, yogurt, cream, cottage cheese, etc., paired with whatever's going to be your carbohydrates, your sugar releasing things. So if you want a piece of bread, put peanut butter on it, make it avocado toast, pair it with, some turkey bacon or maybe some turkey sausage gravy or some scrambled eggs or something like that. If you want to have an apple, eat some nuts with it. eat a piece of cheese with it, dip it in peanut butter. That's one of my kids' snacks. Lately, they've been wanting yogurt and apples, so they can dip their apples in yogurt and make their own thing with it. So you can do that. You can add a little cinnamon to it, and if you get those larger tubs of the Greek yogurt, you dip out your portion and then you put whatever topping you want on it. So maybe you add some chopped nuts, some blueberries, some cinnamon. You create your own flavors without the chemicals and the sugars added to it, and you can control what's in it. And so that's going to help balance that blood sugar. When you get your blood sugar balanced, you're going to start seeing a lot of other things, including increased healing, clearer thoughts, A1Cs coming down, etc. And some of that inflammation, that internal road rash is going to start resolving as that blood sugar gets balanced, as that insulin resistance decreases, and as you take that inflammatory food down and start flooding your body with high nutrients. Your body is designed to heal itself, but
That's
it can
right.
only do it if you have the tools for it to do so.
Right. Remove some of those offenders in your diet that are triggering the inflammation. If people are also, if you have more questions about cholesterol questions, there's a good book called The Great Cholesterol Myth. I think it's by Johnny Bowen is the author, but The Great Cholesterol Myth, I'll link that book in the show notes too. It's a great resource about why the statins, the side effects and how you can help your cholesterol more naturally. But all good tips, Rachel. We can't thank you enough for this, and I'm sure we'll have you back on the show in the future. If you guys want to connect with Rachel, please find her on her Instagram account. I will link that as well in the show notes. And if you'd like to catch her talks that we had at the Farmstead Forum on vaccines, whether they're science or religion, and also on 10 Things to Start Your Home Pharmacy, we have those 2 talks recorded. They're on our website under the 2025 conference recordings. Feel free to check those out. And then I also wanted to make a brief announcement. I didn't mention this on the last podcast, but we are having a homestead. The Farmstead Forum is hosting a harvest gathering on August the 8th, which is going to be just like a 5 to 8 type thing where you bring a potluck dish. We'll have a keynote speaker, Dr. Key, who has a grass-fed, non-GMO, grain-finished cattle ranch here in Carrollton. And then we'll have a separate panel, like just a community panel with a few speakers. And then it'll be a great time for you to network, meet other homesteaders. We are capping it at 100 people. So make sure that you RSVP. I will send out an email with a link to RSVP on our website. And it'll be a low cover charge to get in just to help pay for the meatloaf. We're going to hopefully buy meat from Dr. Key's farm. And then the Ag Center is going to make meatloaf for everybody. So y'all will just bring a side to share, hopefully something that you grew from the garden. I figure it's the end of the summer. You should have, some stuff coming in from your garden. So just reserve that date in your calendars. We look forward to seeing everybody. Thank you again, Rachel, for joining us. I look forward to having you back in the future.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. Join our Facebook group and follow us on Instagram for the latest updates. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website for upcoming events. For sponsorship opportunities, reach out to us through our website. See you next time.